morning, I'm Dilip Thakore, editor of EducationWorld.
Good morning, I'm Summiya Yasmeen, managing editor.
Our July issue of EducationWorld is a blockbuster with three very important stories, which I'm sure all of you will like.
Yes.
For our cover story, we put a laser focus on the national education policy, on which there's a lot of silence.
Yes, it's the second anniversary. Last year in July, 2 years ago in July, the NEP 2020 was approved by Union Cabinet, and we're taking stock of what's happening with its implementation.
Now is the time to see stage 2, which is the implementation of the policy.
Yes.
So in our cover story, we've looked at it. Unfortunately, and not unexpectedly, the minister, Mr. Dharmendra Pradhan, declined to talk to us, despite many entreaties, many emails, phone calls, etc. He seems to believe he's not accountable to the public or to explain what the policy, what stage the policy implementation is. Or this is very unfortunate, because ultimately we are asking these questions, which we sent it to him by email, in good faith and in the public interest.
Absolutely.
I think
the Indian public, especially the educators, parents, students, need to know what's happening with NEP 2020 implementation, because it has a far-reaching impact on the future of the next generation.
Absolutely. And there are so many conflicting media reports on this that one is quite confused. So anyway, we've written a detailed story.
Yes, on this we'll tell you more about it. But before that, Dilip, let's take our audience through what we've got in store in our other sections.
Yes.
As usual, the issue is packed with rich and enriching content. In our editorial section this time, we've highlighted two very important issues. Dilip, one is on the this demolition spree that's happening across the country,
especially in Uttar Pradesh. Yes. And we've argued that the government is obliged to give sufficient notice to the people whose houses are being demolished, and also that they have to do it within a reasonable time after the house is constructed. You can't turn up 20 years later, we argue, and then decide that your title is faulty.
Absolutely. And in our second edit, we've talked about the Agnipath scheme. And
for the defense services.
Yes, for the defense services. We argue that, though this scheme is well designed and needed to release funds for investment for modernization of the Indian Army, we say it has been done with insufficient ground preparation.
Yes, we argue that there should be more debate when such important legislation is passed.
Yes. And again, in education news, very interesting and important issues have been highlighted across the states. In Delhi, we talk about again NEP 2020 and the release of a pilot project on early childhood education in 75 schools, which is very promising.
Yes.
And then
and there are reports from Maharashtra, some faculty disaffection. Then West Bengal.
Again, the TET scandal,
which
the
is continuing for
eligibility scandal,
decades.
Yes, which is now continuing for decades. And then in Karnataka, we talk about again the textbooks row.
Yes, which we wrote about the previous month.
Yes, how it's still very much in the news and on the boil, and how some changes have been exceeded by the Karnataka state government.
And in our very first report, we have a new correspondent now in Telangana. We've got a report on how a large number of international schools and international school education groups are setting up offices in the state.
Yes.
And why they're doing it, and they've created a conducive climate for private educators.
Absolutely. And our expert comment written this time by Mr. Shiv Vishwanathan, Professor Shiv Vishwanathan. Professor Vishwanathan is a public intellectual, and he argues very well, and
he explains the Nupur Sharma phenomenon.
Yes.
About she was the one who has got into a lot of trouble for maligning Prophet Muhammad in a reckless kind of statement. So,
yes.
But she's not been prosecuted as yet.
Yes.
Anyway.
Well, he explains,
why
the background and the sociological phenomena of why these kind of incidents are happening with
yes.
such now monotonous regularity.
Indeed, yes.
In our institution profile section, again, two very interesting profiles, one on Delhi Public School, Mihan Nagpur, and another one is on the University of Amsterdam,
Yes.
which I don't know whether surprisingly, maybe Indian students are not aware, offers over 20 programs in the English medium at the undergraduate and at the master's levels.
150 programs at the master's
Yes,
level,
150
and 20 at undergraduate
Yes.
in English language.
Yes.
Then there are young achievers page.
Yes, and young achievers, we must say that one of the young achievers we've profiled is the rising badminton star Mithun.
Who's just beaten India number one.
Yeah, Mithun Manjunath, who's just shown a very good account of himself in the Singapore Open.
Yes.
And to our cover story,
yes,
this time which Dilip spoke about earlier, we are taking stock 2 years after the NEP 2020 was approved by the Union Cabinet. We talk about its implementation from early childhood to higher education, and
across
we
the
say
spectrum.
that it's actually in a stalemate. Many of the things which have been promised in NEP 2020 haven't taken off, and even if they have taken off, they are not being done in proper consultation with stakeholders, especially private education institutions.
Indeed, yes. And as I said, unfortunately, the minister declined to be interviewed, but we've printed the questions which we asked him, which in our opinion are quite innocuous, and we wonder why he declined to answer.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well,
yes.
but we hope we've given also the Sathar deadlines, which the Education Ministry has set for different tasks, 295 or more than 290 tasks
yes.
from early childhood to education. I mean, in all sincerity, for the future of the next generation, we hope that these timelines, are followed and
yes.
will be observed.
Yes. Anyway, we have not taken it as an insult that he's not to speak. We are always open for constructive engagement.
Yes,
and
criticism and discussion.
Yes.
Yeah, and again, people section.
Yes.
Packed with
very doers, movers and shakers.
Yes,
doers.
can-do people who are doing a lot in education. There's a pioneer sex educator, Anjukesh. There's a person who is doing some extraordinary work in the edtech sector, and then right in West Bengal in the district, in the
rural missionaries.
Yes, there are 2 rural missionaries who've set up a
education missionaries.
Yes, they've set up an extraordinary NGO which is offering healthcare, education, and agriculture education services to rural people in this far-flung and
backward areas
of the Purulia district in West Bengal.
So please check out our people section. These are people who are going the extra mile to do something beyond the ordinary for Indian education.
Yeah. And again, very interesting teacher-to-teacher section there, written by Prachi Bhartawaj on the mentorship teacher development model.
Yes, rather than the audit model.
Yes, rather than the audit model, which is very authoritative and severe, she recommends the mentorship teacher professional development model.
Yes, very interesting. Then our international news, which is unique to India because nobody ever bothers to cover what's happening in education in the rest of the world. We have reports on the Ukraine, where they're trying to rebuild their universities, then rising tuition fees in UK, which is of great import to Indian students hoping to go there. And then from Nepal, Nepalese students are flooding Australia.
Yeah, and China, how there's a myopia epidemic, especially after the pandemic.
Myopia, I mean literally myopia. They can't, children, eyesight is very poor.
Yes.
So become very poor.
Hence, educators and doctors and everyone are advocating that let children out to play.
And of course, in the Philippines, Marcos Jr. is back. What are the implications of that for the education sector?
Especially history rewriting.
Especially history rewriting, something which is being attempted in India also on a large scale.
Yes. In our special report, we talk about India's mighty medical education mess. We've taken the sad plight of Indian medical students who've returned from Ukraine because of the Russian invasion, and unfortunately these students can't be accommodated in the Indian medical education system, and this has spurred the larger question: why
Why-
are Indian students going off to these far-flung, hostile
In
countries?
such large numbers.
In
For
such-
example, we point out there are
Yes.
18,000 Indian students in Ukraine studying medicine, 16,000 in Russia,
Yes.
15,000 in the Philippines, and a large number in China also.
Yes, and we've arrived at the answer. It's because of the huge demand-supply imbalance in medical education. To give you an example, India has the highest number of medical colleges in the world, 596, but we offer only 88,000 seats.
For a nation of 1 billion
Yes, for a
people.
nation of 1 billion. And in contrast, China has only 420 medical colleges, but they offer over 280,000 seats. So this is what is really driving these
That's
students
the
out.
root of the problem.
Yes, the root of the problem.
And then again, we've given a table on private and public. It's very difficult for private entrepreneurs, even well-wishing, well-intentioned people, to promote a new medical college of some ridiculous terms and conditions that are
Yes.
imposed on promoters.
Yeah.
So all this is discussed. You won't find this anywhere else in the media.
It's discussed in detail, and it's very, very important that we talk about this, especially the public, because it has large implications for the country's healthcare system. If we don't
the
have
future, yes.
if we don't have qualified medical practitioners, to treat and heal the nation's over 1 billion citizens, then God only save us.
Yes, indeed. And the very important people like Dr. Devi Shetty and others who are
Have
interviewed
been
for this
quoted,
story.
and we are making a strong case to liberalize medical education.
Yes. Then in our book review section, the famous French economist Piketty's, Thomas Piketty's book is reviewed. A book review on looming water crisis, an important book, and then of course our
Postscripts
most often read page.
and most liked page.
Yes, is Postscript, which is a bit of what would you say, off the track reports and mixed with some engaging gossip. So we recommend this issue of Education World, the July issue. I'm sure you will enjoy reading it, and if you read it all, you'll become quite well versed in what's happening in Indian education. Thank you.
And before we go, as usual, our ParentsWorld cover story on a very important subject, I think,
Yes.
especially with the class 12 board results having just been announced. How do you help children choose new age career pathways? We give some very valuable advice. We tell parents, don't foist your career ambitions on your children, and be open to them exploring a new age career
and now
pathways.
with the internet, you can really explore hundreds of careers,
Yes.
which are probably much better than the old careers of engineering, medicine, law, etc. So many options available to students. Some of these careers are much more lucrative than these traditional careers. So we strongly recommend you read the ParentsWorld issue as well. Thank you.
Thank you.